Listening and asking questions is absolutely key to any networking situation. I'm going to tell you a story. I was recently at an event and I didn't know anybody. And I was really quite confronted, and it may surprise you that even I get nervous at events like that. So I went in there, and these were very, very high-powered people and in a very influential room. And I was a little bit intimidated, to tell you the truth. But I walked up to the first group of people. They were in an open group, as we talked about in the previous video, and I sort of went up there, put out my hand, introduced myself, and they started talking to me. One by one, the people in that group went off to get drinks or something. I was left with this one person who I actually happen to know, and this person has somewhat of a level of fame. That person's rather well known, and I was a little bit intimidated. But I remembered that the best way to get to know people is to listen and ask questions. So I started asking a lot of questions. Why are you here? Tell me about your business. How did you get so successful? I asked a lot of questions, and I listened attentively. And of course, when you're listening attentively, you're nodding, you're engaging with people with your eyes and asking more questions and making acknowledgement sounds. I spoke to this person for I think about 25-30 minutes, and eventually other people came and joined us and we peeled off. We must have looked like we were in an intense conversation because nobody came for quite some time. Later on that evening, I met somebody else that I did actually know who had been talking to that person, and he'd said to me that he'd been speaking to that previous person I'd spoken to, and that guy had said how incredibly interesting I was, and I found that really amusing. But what it made me realise is that all I had done is asked him questions about himself. There's one person that people are really fascinated to talk about, and of course that's themselves. So if you ask a lot of questions, and open questions, and by that I mean questions that don't end with a yes/no answer. So how are you feeling? Good, bad is a closed question, but a question like, and what made you come here today is an open question because it elicits a response. You can't just go yes or no or a one word answer. So that guy thought I was really interesting, but I just ask a lot of questions. And over the years, people say I'm kind of an interesting person because I ask a lot of questions and I seem very interested in them. And I think that that's a skill as a networker that you can cultivate, and anyone can cultivate that. And if you're shy, it's even easier. So long as you're engaging in the conversation, you're using body language, you're using your eyes, you're acknowledging them with facial and voice expressions, then people will be aware that you're very interested in them. But here's a tip. Sometimes there are people that you're in networking situations with that will be what I call conversation hoggers. They will be talking all about themselves. And of course, if you want to network with somebody, they need to get to know you as well. So there's a point in the conversation where I usually try and steer the conversation around to me. And I generally tend to do that when we've met some sort of common ground. So I listen for a conversation cue that we share something in common. And it's usually at that point that I'll take some control of the conversation and start saying, yes, well, I've had that experience too, and this is what I've done. And that enables you to take control of the conversation. I do say that networking is about having two ears and one mouth, and you want to use them in proportion. So don't talk too much about yourself. Tell them a little bit more about you. And if they're interested in networking, they'll start asking questions about you. But going into that situation with two ears, one mouth, a lot of questions, and a real genuine interest in getting to know other people will really set you on the pathway to growing your networking at a networking event.